The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Talks with Iran are back on after some uncertainty yesterday. Savannah Guthrie pleads with her mother's kidnapper to get in touch with the family. And this hour, live reports from Minneapolis with Jorge Ventura, who's on the ground there, and also Tricia Mclaughlin from the Department of Homeland Security. It is Tuesday, February 5th. This is Scott Jennings on the Salem Network. Common sense for the American people. We start in the Middle East today, where American diplomats will meet with their Iranian counterparts on Friday. Talks were falling apart about this time yesterday, but they're now back on as the world waits to see what President Trump will do. Will it be diplomacy or destruction for the butchers in Tehran? This morning, Iranian state media says they have seized 2 foreign oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, and there's no word yet on what flag the tankers were flying. Tensions are high for the U.S.-Iran meeting Friday, set to take place in Oman. Back in the United States, our nation is gripped by the harrowing story of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy, who was apparently kidnapped from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Last night, a tearful Savannah Guthrie pleaded for the kidnappers to get in touch with the family. Here's Cut 7.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive, and she needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk.
Now, about these ransom notes that Savannah Guthrie mentioned, they are floating around, and some were mailed to members of the media. KOLD news anchor Mary Coleman received one of the notes, and she talked about it last night on CNN. Here's Cut 8.
I think a lot of people were questioning the legitimacy of it, and while they're still looking into the legitimacy of it, they're taking all tips into consideration. We do know there are a few things that we can share as far as what the contents were. A lot of it is information that only someone who is holding her for ransom would know. Some very sensitive information and things that people who weren't there when she was taken captive would know. So those are things that are concerning. We immediately sent that information over to the Sheriff's Department, and they're, of course, looking into the legitimacy of it. One of the detectives did get back to us and ask us for some more information so that they can start searching for an IP address and things of that nature to try and figure out who or what people are responsible here.
The search for Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy, enters its 5th day with no suspects identified and no real clear picture of what might have happened to her. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent appeared on Capitol Hill yesterday, clashing with Democrats over basic economic principles, chiefly that letting 20 million illegal immigrants into the country did, in fact, make housing costs go up for the American people. This triggered the Democrats on the committee. Take a listen here to Bessent sparring with Maxine Waters. Here's Cut 6.
Claiming my time,
was a mass unfettered immigration.
Mr. Chair, will you let him know that when I ask
the
time does belong to
the housing
woman
stock.
from California.
10 and 20 million immigrants
Can you
took
shut
up the
up?
housing stock of working Americans, and can you maintain some level of dignity?
Gentleman's time has expired.
No, my time has not expired.
Your time has expired. And the
The
gentleman,
gentleman took up my time. I think you should recognize that, Mr. Chair.
the gentlewoman's
took
time
up
has
my time.
expired. The gentlewoman's time has
Well,
expired.
if you want to,
Parliamentary
if you want to
Chair,
protect him,
the chair
Mr.
recognizes the vice chairman of the
Mr.
committee,
Chair.
Mr.
If you
Heisinger.
want to
Parliamentary inquiry.
go right ahead, but I would not expect you to do that.
Congressional committees, always good radio and television audio for you out there. That prompted a little debate on CNN last night between yours truly and, well, everybody else. Take a listen. Here's Cut 9.
I
I would ask if you know how much housing costs went up during the Biden years.
It went up significantly, but why add to them by adding tariffs?
So,
they didn't go down in the last year. You're actually raising the cost by tariffs.
You're talking about due to interest rates. You mean like buying a home? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, prices of housing went up 20-30% during the 4 years that Joe Biden was in. Some of the arguments we're having about housing in the United States and how expensive it is, the bulk of it came while Biden was president. What Scott Besson is saying is objectively true. We do have a housing shortage in this country. So we already have too few domiciles for the people who are here. His point was simply that if you put 10 or 20 million new people into the pool, whether they're illegal or not, that is going to increase competition for the already short supply of housing. If you already have a shortage of something, and you add 20 million people who are trying to get that something,
I guess what
necessarily
I'm asking for,
you're going to have a problem.
I guess what I'm asking for is actual proof of that being.
There's no correlation between the
economic
increases.
Principles?
But I think
if you have
this is
more
gonna,
people trying to buy fewer commodities.
Listen, I'm asking you. Is there proof that what you are saying actually happened? Because the immigrants came,
but no.
The prices were what they were.
Where do they live?
Is there proof that actually happened?
I think Scott is actually right on the 50,000 point view. I think 50,000 foot view.
Yes, Abby, there is proof that 20 million illegal aliens came here. Yes, Abby, there is proof that housing prices are high and stock is low. I'll be back at the table with Abby and friends tonight at 10 o'clock on CNN. Terrible story out of Indiana. A semi-truck driven by a foreign national named Bekzan Beshakiv struck a van in Jay County, Indiana, carrying an Amish work crew on Tuesday. The crew was from Bryant, Indiana. The victims were Henry Eicher, age 50, and his sons, Menno, 25, and Paul, age 19, plus a family friend, Simon Gyrod, who was 23. The driver of the van, 55-year-old Donald Stipp, is in critical but stable condition. How did the alien driving this semi get into the country? 2 words: Joe Biden. He is a Kyrgyzstani national who entered the United States via the Biden administration's CBP-1 app in 2023, and then he was released into the U.S. via parole by the Biden administration. ICE records show Beshakiv is now in ICE custody. That means local law enforcement honored an ICE detainer and handed him over to federal authorities. As a reminder to you about how this used to work, the Biden-era CBP-1 app allowed upwards of 60,000 otherwise inadmissible illegal aliens to enter the United States every month. President Trump terminated the program the day he was inaugurated and has since turned it into a self-deportation app. But the lingering effects of Biden's open border policies are still tragically being felt today, this time in Indiana. This is the Scott Jennings Show on Salem. As America approaches its 250th anniversary, it is worth revisiting one of the most powerful ideas that sprang from our nation's founding. It's called the pursuit of happiness. Our founders envisioned the freedom to work hard, raise a family, and worship freely, but they did not envision big government programs and handouts. Our friends at Americans for Prosperity believe the pursuit of the American dream is a core part of what makes this country exceptional, and that's why I am proud to partner with AFP. If you believe in the American dream and want to celebrate what makes America special, go to a250toolkit.com, where Americans are sharing their story of how they are keeping the American dream alive. Real stories about opportunity, sacrifice, and taking responsibility. People who aren't waiting around for permission or government handouts. Go to a250toolkit.com and learn more and share your own story. The American dream isn't a big government program. It is, in fact, our pursuit of happiness. More news. Democrats on Capitol Hill have published a list of demands to keep the government from shutting down again next Friday. Many of the demands seek to tie the hands of ICE agents and put them at risk of being doxxed and attacked more than they already are. We'll keep an eye on this. Here is Senate Appropriator Republican Katie Britt of Alabama. Cut 5.
At the end of the day, this is about the safety and security of the American people. We have been left a mess because of Joe Biden's open border policies, Lindsay.
We'll see what happens next Friday, but we are on the brink of another government shutdown possibility. We have some news on aches and pains today. Let me pass along a note I thought was worth sharing with all of you. This one comes from Eileen in my home Commonwealth of Kentucky. She's 87 years old, and she says there was a point where walking had become really difficult. She figured, well, it's just part of getting older. Then she tried Relief Factor. Now she's walking again, Eileen says, even dancing around to music. Her words were simple: no pain. She started out taking 3 packets a day. Now she's down to 2. She says Relief Factor made a difference for her. I would advise you to try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or go to relieffactor.com. Ask yourself, how would it feel to be out of pain? This is Scott Jennings on Salem. Coming up, a live report from Minneapolis from Jorge Ventura of the Daily Caller. Stay with us right here, a conversation you don't want to miss.
When he's not in the Oval Office or owning the libs on CNN, he's here with us. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Thursday, February 5th. Scott Jennings here, Common Sense for the American People. Joined now on the line by Jorge Ventura of the Daily Caller. You might follow Jorge at Ventura Report on the X platform, and if you do, you'll see all sorts of compelling reports and compelling video. He's in Minneapolis tracking all these radical agitators in the streets. Jorge, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Scott, appreciate you having me back on.
Okay, first things first, Jorge. You have been confronting and tracking down these radical agitators who are setting up these roadblocks in the streets, these illegal roadblocks. You tried to talk to them, and they got rather confrontational with you. I'm going to play cut 11 and then have you tell us what happened. Here's Jorge at the Blockade, cut 11.
Just talk to me a little bit about this database, because we just ran our Somali Uber driver's license plate. I mean, you guys did run his license plate without his permission. Just talking about the database a little bit, you know? So, this is the scene right now in South Minneapolis.
Jorge, that was you talking to some of these folks setting up blockades. Not everything has been that peaceful, I suppose, in your interactions. Tell us about what's going on there.
Yeah, Scott, if I could set the scene, that blockade, what those activists call it, is called a filter blockade. It was in the middle of this intersection in South Minneapolis. Essentially, it was made up with just random items like trash dumpsters, mattresses, wooden pallets. And these agitators have their face all covered up. They all have walkie-talkies, and they were actually stopping every single vehicle that was going through that intersection, and they were asking residents for their IDs and also running their license plates. And what they kept saying was their database, and they kept checking residents to see if they were ICE agents. And so we were filming that, kind of exposing this really just makeshift blockade it's been set up for more than 24 hours. When I arrived, local PD didn't dismantle it, and they started questioning our Uber driver. They actually accused our Uber driver when they ran his license plate of being an ICE agent. That's what kind of started that interaction, and they ended up assaulting me. They had tried multiple times to steal my phone, shove me into the vehicle, and we've captured it all on camera, and it really exposing what is kind of just this madness of Minneapolis and how these agitators have been emboldened by local officials and local law enforcement. And really what caught my attention, Scott, is how they had this database. They kept running these license plates and kept trying to see which vehicles were ICE agents. And if I could just quickly add, Scott, later that day I did go on a media embed with ICE in Minneapolis. So we got this exclusive ride-along. We went along on this targeted operation to arrest a criminal illegal alien. And actually, activists were able to track down those agents that I was with, dox their location, and because of that, the agents couldn't move in to make an arrest. So I just kind of want to highlight that, these activists are having real impact on real operations on the ground in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we're going to get a report next hour here on the show about how organized they really are. So these blockades, Jorge, first of all, did I hear you correctly say they are getting physical with people? They got physical with you at one of these blockades?
Yeah, they actually assaulted myself and a photojournalist that I was with, Eric Herrera. We were simply just filming the blockade, and the part that angered them, and it started to the interaction where they started to assault me was I actually did film a couple SUVs just down the road that had their windows tinted. I don't know if they were federal agents or not, but the agitators were actually turning them around. And when they filmed that, that's when they actually attempted to steal my phone. They assaulted me. Actually, my right hand was bloody just a little bit, but they shoved me multiple times, assaulted me, tried to steal, like I said, my phone, assaulted the photojournalist I was with. But we were able to capture everything on camera, have all the footage. And I'm just glad that now these blockades are being exposed and more pressure on local media, local law enforcement to actually do a crackdown. But these are called filter blockades, and the plan for these agitators and in these signal groups was to actually have these blockades all over South Minneapolis. And I actually got to encounter one of the first ones, which was on 32nd and Cedar Avenue in South Minneapolis.
Jorge, is there any evidence at all, we've got about 30 seconds, that the police are actually arresting anyone who are setting up these blockades?
We haven't seen any arrests yet. We keep following up, but we haven't seen anything from our side. And so far, like I said, ICE agents have really been impacted by these activists. So just want to highlight that this is real serious what's going on, that federal enforcement operations being impacted by activists on the ground.
That's our man on the ground, Jorge Ventura. He is with the Daily Caller. He is doing up-close personal work on bringing information to the American people about these radical agitators in Minneapolis who are making it difficult for federal law enforcement to work, who are setting up illegal roadblocks. Jorge will keep checking in with you, and please stay safe there on the ground in Minneapolis. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Tricia Mclaughlin of the Department of Homeland Security. Big interview. It's coming up. Don't miss it. Scott Jennings is here on Salem.
Hey, it's Scott. Listen, when I prep for my CNN debates, I need to know exactly where the national conversation is headed. And it turns out it's helpful to know that in your everyday life as well. And that's why I tried out Free Spoke. Now, it's my go-to place for search and for news. When you use Free Spoke, it's a search platform that gives you the full story. You get information from the left, you get it from the right, you get non-mainstream, you get independent journalists, you get podcast insights. What you get from Free Spoke is the full story all in one place. And here's the thing, when you search on Free Spoke, you know they are not going to sell your data. It's quite something, actually. It's fast, it's private, it's unbiased. Free Spoke helps me research topics and make sure that I understand the full picture. You can have this tool as well. Just go to freespoke.com/Jennings to download their app for free. And as an exclusive for my listeners, use promo code Jennings after you download it and get 35% off the premium version. You go ad-free and you unlock deeper elite tools to have control over your information. So don't rely on incomplete information. Take control of your own information environment. See every perspective so you can think for yourself, just like I do before every debate.
Now, for America's favorite pundit, it's Scott Jennings.
It is Thursday, February 5th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem, and we are honored to be joined by Tricia Mclaughlin. She is the chief spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. You've no doubt seen her on your television recently, as she's a one-man gang taking on this propaganda campaign going on in America aimed at destabilizing our law enforcement personnel who are out there keeping us safe and getting rid of these illegal aliens out of our community. Tricia, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to spread truth and real information to the American people about the illegal immigration situation in America. Let me start with something that happened on CNN last night. I'm going to have you respond to this. There's always a debate going on, Tricia, about these illegal aliens that are being deported and whether they have other criminal activity despite in addition to also being in the country illegally. Let's play cut 2 and have Tricia respond.
The facts are this. Only 5% of the people that they have deported thus far are violent criminal offenders. 73% of the individuals have no criminal record. You can shake your head. It's from the Cato Institute.
It's false. It's false.
The Cato Institute is false?
The federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, has repeatedly published data showing that 70% of the people that have been deported had other criminal records. They have said this on the record time and again. I don't know about the Cato Institute, but the government has repeatedly said this has been.
Hold on a minute. Here's the thing, though. The thing is that you take whatever the DHS says as truth, as the Bible.
They published the list.
Okay, yes, but that doesn't mean anything, Scott. These are the same people who told us that the...
Okay, Tricia, that was me taking on Bakari Sellers and Anna Navarro. Who's right, Scott Jennings or those two people?
Scott Jennings, and you are a saint for doing that every single night, Scott. But you are right, 70% of those illegal aliens who have been arrested under the Trump administration have either prior criminal convictions or pending criminal charges against them. But Scott, that doesn't even include those who are wanted for crimes in their country of origin or a third country. That doesn't include known or suspected terrorists, gang members, human rights abusers, people who have not even been caught for the crimes they've committed yet. So by no means does it mean that those 30% are innocent individuals. And oh, by the way, every single one of them committed a crime by illegally entering or remaining in our country.
Okay, so next issue, and I want to get specific about a state, is Minnesota. Yesterday, the Department of Homeland Security announced that 4,000 violent criminal aliens have been taken out of Minnesota alone. 4,000. What kind of people are we talking about here, Tricia?
Scott, and you're not going to hear this on CNN or really, unless you're saying it, really anywhere in the mainstream media, even though we push out these faces in these crimes every single day. Just yesterday, Scott, an individual from Laos convicted of sexual assault and terroristic threats. An individual from Uzbekistan, he's a known or suspected terrorist. An individual from Guatemala arrested, domestic violence and a DUI. These are the individuals we're going out every single day. Our law enforcement are risking their lives to remove from the streets. And it's not just them that they're facing. Of course, they're facing these violent agitators while they go after these criminals. They have 1,000% increase in assaults against them, 8,000% increase in death threats against them. And yet they are risking their lives to remove these kind of violent individuals from Minnesota.
Tricia, I just had Jorge Ventura on the show a moment ago. He's with the Daily Caller. He said he was on a ride-along with some ICE agents this week, and they were going to arrest an illegal alien. But some of these radical agitators in the streets of Minneapolis somehow knew where they were going and actually were able to prevent the arrest from occurring. I wanted you to respond to that. It seems to me we have a bunch of radicals in the streets who are dedicated to interfering with proper law enforcement activity. How are they getting information that tells them when and where to show up to stop ICE from enforcing federal immigration law? Is this being investigated, and are we going to see arrests of people who are impeding these sorts of lawful federal activities?
Homeland Security investigators are investigating this. We do have actually infiltrated some of these groups, so we're getting some of this information ahead of time. But I mean, you look at ICE Watch or these other signal chats where they're sharing driver's license information, where our CBP and ICE officers are staying at hotels. You've probably, and your viewers have probably seen those images and footage of these agitators destroying the property of the hotel where they believe these ICE officers are staying. So our law enforcement is facing a highly coordinated campaign of violence against them, and we're on top of it as far as tracking down who's involved in these operations. There's actually just an individual last night who is an influencer and leader of Antifa that the FBI went and arrested out of Minneapolis. So we'll continue to do that and make sure our law enforcement is safe.
Yeah, I saw the video of that guy that was arrested this morning. Scary looking and scary sounding guy. They always say there's no Antifa, but the guy's literally wearing a sweatshirt that says Antifa, right on his shirt. Tricia Mclaughlin is our guest. She's the spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Yesterday, Tricia, Tom Homan held a press conference. He said he was able to draw down about 700 federal law enforcement out of Minnesota because we are getting increased cooperation from the county jails in Minnesota. First of all, what does that cooperation look like out in the counties? And then second, I want to get focused on Minneapolis. I assume we're still not getting any kind of cooperation from the mayor or the county there, city of Minneapolis. So let's start with the counties out in the state and then move into Minneapolis on this.
So Tom Homan was able to secure 80 agreements from county jails agreeing to notify us before they release a criminal legal alien from their jail. So, Scott, last year alone, under Walz's watch and under the sanctuary city policies, 470 criminal legal aliens who were in the custody of Minnesota were released from their jails and put back onto the streets to reperpetuate more crimes against Americans. That's what we're trying to stop, and that's what we're trying to prevent. So we're hopeful that these 80 agreements, they will actually notify us before they release an individual. And that is actually exactly why we're there. And we've had surged such a presence is because when you don't allow us into those jails, we have to have number of men and women on the ground to find, apprehend, and then arrest these individuals who are already in custody. So this is a good step forward. We hope that they actually abide by those agreements. Only time will tell, considering Tim Walz did say in the Wall Street Journal he denied that any criminal illegal aliens were released back onto his streets. But we are hopeful. Trust but verify. As far as Fry, I'm not hearing a whole lot of compliance from him. We're hearing that he's not being very cooperative, but hopefully Tom Homan will give us an update on that soon.
Yeah, what's going on specifically in the city of Minneapolis is incredible. It seems, I saw Fry in an interview last night, he seemed to be admitting that during the Obama years, they did cooperate with the federal government there in Minneapolis, and now that Donald Trump's the president, they don't want to cooperate, so they're putting their own citizens in danger because they have Trump derangement syndrome. But they're also allowing in Minneapolis all of these blockades, all of these encampments to proliferate, although Tom Homan said he asked the chief of police in Minneapolis to take some down. There's clearly more of these barricades going up. Are ICE agents right now in danger, or are they being impeded by these blockades? And are we getting enough cooperation from the police, the local police in Minneapolis, in taking down these blockades?
So as far as these blockades go, we actually did get cooperation from the local police to help calm down that situation and get those blockades out of the way to not impede our law enforcement officers. Keeping in mind, obstruction and impeding is a federal crime and a felony. I mean, our law enforcement officers continue to be in danger, and they continue to be assaulted. Just last night, we arrested at least 9 agitators, one of which used a vehicle as a weapon to ram our law enforcement. Others were spitting, kicking, and other means of assault against law enforcement. So we continue to see that.
Tricia, you announced earlier this week, Secretary Noem announced that she is sending body cameras to Minnesota to be worn by all federal law enforcement. A, are all those body cameras now in the field? Is everybody wearing one? And B, at the department, do you plan to release on an ongoing basis some body cam footage showing what the federal agents are facing on a daily basis?
Yes, absolutely. We plan on releasing a lot of footage. Scott, as you know, somebody who's online, frequently we're seeing that agitators are provoking our law enforcement and then selectively clipping, editing, manipulating footage to put out there without context and really make it go viral. And these body camera footage is really going to help us to correct the record, to hold people accountable, and even get some prosecutions. Just general transparency for the American people. So we are very optimistic about that. As far as actual deployment of these body cameras, I know we have quite a few on the ground already. I don't know if every single agent on the ground does just yet, but we are also procuring the right amount of data because, of course, this is going to require an enormous amount of footage storage for these images.
Tricia Mclaughlin from the Department of Homeland Security. That's our big interview today. I want to shift gears, Tricia, on another topic. There's a big story emerging out of Indiana. There was a semi-truck that crashed into a van, killing 4 people in rural Indiana. It turns out the person driving the semi was in the country because of the Biden CBP One app. And then he somehow got a commercial driver's license, it sounds like now, in the state of Pennsylvania. We've seen a number of situations where aliens or illegal aliens have come into the United States, obtained some kind of license to drive a semi, and then gotten into fatal accidents. What is the Department of Homeland Security response to this today? And are we going to see a crackdown on these aliens being able to get behind the wheel of semi-tractor trailers?
Oh, it's egregious and it's heartbreaking, and I'm so sorry to those families and those individuals who have been impacted by this tragedy. This individual came in December of 2023, as you said, before he entered and was paroled into the country by the Biden administration via the CBP One app. And then, yes, he procured a CDL, a commercial driver's license, from the state of Pennsylvania. This should have never happened. I don't understand how, coming down the highway, Scott, as you know, these 18-wheelers, these vehicles are like missiles. If you are not properly trained, if you can't speak speak the English language, if you can't follow the correct traffic procedures and signals, this is an incredibly dangerous formula and deadly formula. So I think more information will come out about this individual. And I know that Secretary Duffy and Secretary Noem have been working together on operations to get these drivers off of the streets. We've been conducting operations at way stations and other places that CDL drivers frequent to make sure that these people are properly vetted.
That's Tricia Mclaughlin. She is with the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia, I'm going to hold you over through the commercial break because when we come back, I want to ask you about the temporary protected status program that Trump is trying to let expire, but a federal judge is getting in the way. We'll talk about that with you when we come back. A quick word from our friends at Patriot Mobile. When it comes to wireless service, here's what most people don't realize. There's a company that you can choose that actually shares your values. In fact, they invest in your values. It's called Patriot Mobile. They are more than just a wireless provider. They are an activist organization that is funded by selling top-tier cell phone service. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're helping to grow a movement that fuels the Christian conservative cause. Every time you pay your bill, you're advancing the values of faith, family, and freedom, and switching is easier than ever. Activate your new service in minutes. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Whatever you want to do, take a stand. Go to patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code SCOTT and get a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. I encourage you to make the switch today. I'm using their service. It is top-notch, and I encourage you to do the same. More with Tricia Mclaughlin from the Department of Homeland Security when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Rounding out hour number one here on Thursday, February 5th. Special guest conversation today with Tricia Mclaughlin. She is the chief spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia, thanks for holding over with us. I wanted to talk to you about this temporary protected status program, specifically as it relates to the Haitians. TPS was granted to the Haitians back in 2010, I think, after an earthquake. That was 16 years ago. Hundreds of thousands have come into the country. It was due to expire this week, but a federal judge won't let it expire somehow, even though it's the president's prerogative, not the judicial branch. What do you all think about this over at the Department of Homeland Security, and what is going to happen next here?
Well, it's lawless. It's naked activism from this judge, and we don't think it'll stand. We plan to take this to the Supreme Court, but I did think it was interesting in her ruling that she wrote about the president's past comments on Haiti, criticizing the condition in its governance, and then in the same breath, she said that these people should have temporary protected status, which is a program that's designed for extraordinary circumstances, and of course meant to be just that, temporary, not permanent, not de facto amnesty. So she can't have it both ways, and yet she wants to. This was granted 15 years ago, as you mentioned, after an earthquake. We need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to actual integrity in the system. This looks like it's about amnesty, and we need to actually have there be integrity in these systems.
You know, Tricia, outside looking in, you've got temporary protected status, you've got asylum claims, you had the CBP One app under Biden. It just seems to most common sense people that we created one scam after another to enable what otherwise we would just call illegal immigration. Is that how you see it at the department?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at CHNV, which is a program, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, let in about 500,000 people into this country, zero vetting. Again, it was really just for the optics at the border. It was granted, this program was created right before the 2024 election, and President Biden and his team decided they did not like the optics that were happening at our southern border, so instead they just let all these people in with no vetting, and it really was like legalizing murder and then saying that violent crime was going down.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think about the numbers of people that were able to come in, and everybody's got a story, everybody's got a status, everybody's got a program, everybody's got a box to check, but these people really have no reason to be in our country other than some made-up designation by a previous administration. Tricia, let's wrap up our conversation and talk about the men and women of ICE and the CBP, the Customs and Border Patrol. Was wondering if Secretary Noem and the rest of the leadership of the department, what message do you have for the rank and file law enforcement? I've never seen anything like this. You've got one whole political party in this country that is dedicated to demonizing them on a regular basis, calling them Nazis, calling them Gestapo. You've got a prosecutor in Philadelphia who says he's going to hunt them down. You've got Eric Swalwell in California saying he'll make sure they never work in the state of California. You have threats and promises of violence. Jerry Nadler says you can shoot them in the street. What's the message from DHS to the rank and file law enforcement who are working to enforce our nation's immigration laws?
We are so proud of you, and we will always stand with you. And the American people, at least the sane ones, are so proud of you. These are men and women who wake up every single day to enforce the rule of law that's on the books in Congress. If people don't like the laws on the books, if these politicians don't like the laws on the books, then they should lobby Congress. But to demonize our law enforcement, to put their lives further in jeopardy, it's heinous, it's revealing. And Scott, I truly believe in a decade or hopefully less, people will look back on this and say this was absolute hysteria, that these men and women were just enforcing the rule of law, and God bless them.
Yeah, amen to that. Tricia Mclaughlin, she is the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs of the Department of Homeland Security, the chief spokesperson for DHS. You'll see her on your TV for the foreseeable future, so long as these issues are going to be front and center, and it sounds like they are. Tricia, thanks for all the time today, and we'll check in with you in the very near future. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, rounding out the first hour, I do want to put in a quick word for the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening this November. If you're like me and you are dreaming of going somewhere warmer, we all are dreaming of that right now in the United States because it's cold almost everywhere. Well, it's warmer in November in the Gulf of America, and you'll be on a cruise ship with yours truly, Mike Gallagher, and many others. I would ask you to reserve your cabin today. They are going quickly. Text the word cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be a blast. We're going to talk, we're going to eat, we're going to sail, and it's going to be fun. More to come. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Stay with us.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Thursday, February 5th. This is Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. Let's give you a quick check of the national headlines. Major event tonight coming at the White House, 7 o'clock. President Trump, Dr. Oz, and others will unveil the official launch of Trump RX, the new online platform where you can buy prescription drugs at discounted prices. It is a key plank of the president's health care agenda. Again, 7 o'clock tonight. The Pima County, Arizona sheriff just held a press conference on the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping. Let's hear from the sheriff. This is Cut 12.
Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home. Our department, the sheriff's department, along with all of our partners at the FBI, have been working around the clock. And we just want her home and find a way to get to the bottom of all of this, just as you do.
As you heard from the sheriff there, $50,000 reward now being offered by the FBI, the president sending federal resources. We continue to look into the radical agitators on the ground in Minnesota, and it seems that, yes, people are being trained and encouraged to insert themselves into law enforcement situations with tragic consequences. And now we have the proof. Joining us this hour is Christina Buttons, who is an investigative reporter for the Manhattan Institute, and her work regularly appears in the City Journal. Christina is here to discuss her report inside Minneapolis's Ice Watch network, which exposes some of the organizations behind these Ice Watch groups. Christina Buttons, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for your work on this. Your recent investigation provides a detailed look into these networks behind the ice watching effort in Minneapolis. So, for the record, based on your research, are people being organized and trained with the express purpose of interfering with and impeding federal law enforcement?
Yes, that definitely appears to be happening.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no, sorry. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, well, you said yes, and I wanted to add that you found that this is happening with a group called the Defend the 612, not just a loose collection of protesters, but a central organizing force. Maybe tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of became interested in this story after I saw this sort of fatal confrontation with Renee Good. I wanted to know, how she got involved in doing Ice Watch and why she felt that she could, just ignore law enforcement commands and drive away. I want to know where that, why she felt she could do that. And I found the group that she was working with called Defend the 612. I joined their training on January 8th, the day following her passing away. And I found the training to be extremely concerning. I saw the organizers downplay what had happened to her. At no point did they say, put your personal safety first. Don't do anything dangerous. Comply with law enforcement. It's not worth, risking your life over. Instead, it was, the opposite. They downplayed her death. They downplayed the they encouraged non-compliance with ICE, and they urged participants to stretch their willingness to take risks. And shortly after that, I entered their Signal network, and I found, there's a lot more going on than just documenting and observing ICE.
Christina, let me ask you a question. You personally witnessed the trainings. You joined the video group. You've been inside the Signal chats. So they are organizing people and encouraging them to put themselves in harm's way. They are not telling people to stay safe. Where are these trainings coming from? Who are the trainers? From where are they emanating? Is it inside Minneapolis or external?
Right. So the Defend the 612 is a group basically of local nonprofit activists that connected with this sort of national organizing hub that calls itself States at the Core. And some of the organizers within that group, were part of an organization in Chicago that in 2017 pioneered this sort of ICE Watch model. And States at the Core, their role since early 2025 has been implementing the ICE Watch network and turning it into a kind of national strategy. And they've been working on getting that enacted in cities across the United States. And early December is when they connected with the local Minneapolis activists to set up the ICE Watch network there.
We're talking to Christina Buttons of the Manhattan Institute, and often her work appears in the City Journal. She has infiltrated successfully the trainings that are going on in Minneapolis to get radical agitators to interfere with federal law enforcement. You also, in your work that we're discussing today, describe rapid response chats with anonymously named participants who are coordinating rapid response in the city, I guess, sending people where ICE is trying to do law enforcement. How active are these chats? And in the trainings that you attended, in these chats, how many people are we talking about? Dozens, hundreds? What's the volume here?
I mean, there's thousands of people across hundreds of neighborhood and role-based groups. So I accessed that Signal network the weekend following Renee Good's death, and I managed to locate an account that belonged to her and kind of confirmed her involvement with this group. But it's just a constant frenzy of activity. There's various different types of groups. The rapid response, that group is just for a lot of tracking ICE agents on car and on foot, logging their license plates. I mean, they've logged 5,000 license plates by now. They track what hotels that ICE agents stay in. I mean, they're essentially stalking them, I guess you could say.
And
a lot of,
let me ask you this. We have about a minute to go here because everybody knows the names Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I just want to make sure I understand for the record here. You confirmed that Renee Good herself was part of one of these trainings, that she was involved in the groups. Is Alex Preddy also someone who was trained similarly? Because the narrative, of course, is that these are just random passersby or they're just locals who have wandered into a situation. But in the case of Good and Preddy, have you been able to confirm that they were both part of these training, highly organized groups?
It strongly appears that Preddy was as well. I didn't find his account. Another user on X said they found an account linked to his in the Signal network. But these Signal networks, I mean, there's a lot more, that, like I said, than just observing ICE going on. They're hiding illegal immigrants. They're planning violent protests. They're working on their media propaganda strategy, and planning sabotage of ICE operations.
That is Christina Buttons, an investigative reporter for the Manhattan Institute. She has done the research. She has done the work. She has personally observed these organized groups who were training these radical agitators, who were planning violence, who were harboring illegal aliens, and who were planning propaganda campaigns all over Minneapolis. Christina, your work also regularly appears in the City Journal, and we can find you on X at Buttons Lives. Christina Buttons, thank you for this work. I know it was difficult to do, but it is vital for the American people to know. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll look forward to your future contributions on this and other topics. We're going to take a break. First, I want to give you some news on the fight against aches and pains. This news comes to us from Tom in Texas. 85-year-old Tom. Pain was keeping him from riding his bike and flying small aircraft as a flight instructor. But after taking Relief Factor, he says his lower back and hip pain are virtually gone, and even had some long-standing trigger finger issues that have been resolved. We're hearing from people all over the country. In fact, I talked to my dad down in Florida. He took the trip. First thing he said to me when he was packing up, I have to take Relief Factor with me, and now that he's there, he said he's taking it, he feels great, he's golfing, he's seeing his friends, he's living his life. That's what I want for you. If pain is holding you back, try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start and see how it goes. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit relieffactor.com. This is Scott Jennings on Salem. When we come back, Zohran Mamdani punishing poor kids in New York. It's disgusting. My thoughts coming up next.
Saving Western civilization, one busted leftist narrative at a time. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
Welcome back to Common Sense for the American People. I am Scott Jennings. If you're wondering what socialism looks like in practice, you need look no further than New York City, where the new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is tearing down the educational ladder that helped him to climb. The mayor wants to eliminate gifted and talented placement for kindergarten and delay advanced instruction until 3rd grade. Mamdani calls this equity. He says testing young children is unfair. He promises rigorous instruction for everyone. But that is the lie. Here's the truth. The rich kids will be fine when they get rid of these programs. It is the poor kids who will be sacrificed. That's usually what happens when the socialists come along to enforce equity. Gifted and talented programs exist for a reason. Gifted kids are different. They learn faster. They think deeper. They need complexity and acceleration, or they disengage. You put them in a one-speed, one-size-fits-all classroom, and they don't lift everyone else up. They simply shut down. Boredom turns into apathy. Apathy turns into underperformance. Underperformance turns into lost potential. And here's the cruelty at the heart of Mamdani's plan. The students who depend most on gifted and talented are high-achieving, low-income kids. These are children whose parents can't afford private schools, tutors, enrichment camps, or relocation. For them, a gifted and talented program isn't a perk, it's an escape velocity. Take it away and you don't create fairness, You create a cage for these kids, and inside that cage, these kids have an anvil put on their head by a socialist mayor. We've seen exactly what happens when cities do what Mamdani is planning here in New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Cambridge. When liberal cities begin to push equity instead of education, outcomes get worse, parents flee, and enrollment in public schools collapses. New York parents are already seeing the writing on the wall. In recent polling, in fact, 20% say they'd move out of the city if Gifted and Talented is killed. Another 26% say they'd go private, parochial, or charter. You can call it bright flight. And when the families with options leave town, well, who's left? It's the kids without options, the poor kids who are now stuck in public school and without programming that is designed to lift them up. Mamdani's policy here does nothing to help struggling students. There is zero evidence that lowering the ceiling raises the floor. All it does is destroy excellence inside public schools and outsources it to the private schools. And here's the part the equity crowd desperately wants to hide. All of this elimination hurts minority kids the most. Black and Hispanic students showed the largest academic gains from participation in gifted and talented programs. Let me tell you that again. The very kids that Mamdani claims to defend here are the ones that he is hurting the most. But of course, the racial equity argument here is just a cover for the true socialist aim, to keep the population as poor and stupid as possible. Don't let anyone rise above their station if you can help it. Create a permanent underclass that is as dependent on government as possible. Parents know this, especially parents in communities of color. They don't want slogans. They want rigor. They want doors opened, not bricked shut. They understand a basic truth that the socialist class refuses to admit. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Now let's talk about hypocrisy, because in this case, it's not incidental. It's the whole story. Zohran Mamdani himself graduated from the Bronx High School of Science in 2010, one of New York City's elite specialized public high schools, and admission is based exactly on one thing: a test score. There are no legacy admissions, no donor influence, no racial preferences, no politics. It's just a kid, a pencil, and a score. That system did not oppress Mamdani. It lifted him. And now, after climbing that ladder, he is pulling it up behind him. He is attacking the tests that gave him his chance, and he condemns the pipeline that worked for him. He declares merit unjust after benefiting from it. That is the ruling class deciding they've climbed high enough and everyone else can stay where they are. This is socialism in its purest form. Not lifting the bottom, not expanding opportunity, but enforcing sameness on everyone. In socialism, no one is allowed to rise too far above their station. Excellence is suspect. Achievement is offensive. Aspiration is a problem to be managed. But that's what parents of poor children are getting in today's New York City under a socialist mayor named Zohran Mamdani. More news after this. You're listening to Scott Jennings on Salem. It's common sense for the American people. When we come back, some information about a lawsuit that is rocking the transgender activist world. Stay with us.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
You know something? Universities are kind of a bad deal. 6 figures of debt for a bachelor's degree that signals less every year. 4 years spent navigating ideological rules instead of learning how to think. Grades inflated, standards lowered, dissent punished. We call it higher education, but it's mostly expensive daycare with a credential attached. The University of Austin, also known as UATX, is different, however. Admissions at UATX are based on test scores alone. No essays, no resumes. Nobody cares who your parents know. If you're smart enough, you're in. UATX students turned down UChicago and fled Barnard to complete a demanding great books core, including Aristotle, Shakespeare, de Tocqueville, alongside real math, science, economics, and AI. Classes are small, professors actually know your name, grades aren't padded, excellence is measured and rewarded.
From day one, students work directly with top founders, investors, and institutions, building companies, doing serious research, and landing real internships. Then here's the part that changes everything. There is no tuition. Thanks to private donors, every UATX student graduates debt-free. You're free to take risks, free to start companies, and free to build a life instead of paying off loans. If you want an empty credential, look elsewhere. If you want a serious education that actually prepares you to lead, apply to the University of Austin. Visit uaustin.org. That's uaustin.org.
Truth, justice, and the American way. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
And it is Thursday, February 5th. Scott Jennings here. Common sense for the American people. In just a moment, we are going to talk to an intrepid and independent reporter named Ben Ryan, who has an article in the Free Press called A Legal First That Could Change Gender Medicine. It is a shocking story of a child who was forced to sue her psychologist and plastic surgeon after her gender transition surgery. There's been a settlement, or an award, I should say, in that case. Ben Ryan is here in just a moment. First, I have a message that every parent needs to hear. More kids are being targeted online than ever through gaming platforms, social media, and messaging apps. And big tech is not doing enough to protect them. These companies profit from screen time and engagement. And when predators slip through the cracks, families pay the price. Child Help, our friends and partners at Child Help, they hear from children every day who were contacted through games and apps. Kids who were groomed, manipulated, or threatened by adults pretending to be someone else. One boy reached out through the Child Help hotline. He was terrified and ashamed. An adult he met in an online game was demanding photos and threatening to lie to his parents if he didn't comply. Being able to talk to Child Help saved that boy's life, most likely. That's why Child Help matters so much. Your donation supports life-saving programs like the one I just described. Every $27 can help save a child from abuse. If big tech won't protect our kids, we must do it. Donate to childhelp.org/Scott or text Child Help to 94878 and give $27 today. I'm a donor. I wouldn't ask you to donate to something I don't support. I know Child Help. I know the executives. I've been to their headquarters. You can trust Child Help with your money. It's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Joining us now to discuss a huge story, one we actually talked a little bit about yesterday, is a reporter named Ben Ryan. Ben is an independent reporter who specializes in health and science reporting, in particular as those subjects intersect with law and public policy. He's written for the New York Times, NBC, the New York Sun, the Atlantic, the Washington Post, the Guardian, and he has a Substack. And I would encourage you all to check out Ben's Substack. It's called benryan.substack.com. Ben, welcome in to the Scott Jennings Show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Scott.
Thank you for giving us some of your time today. Ben, your latest article is published in the Free Press. The article is about a 16-year-old girl who got a mastectomy while undergoing a gender transition. She then filed a lawsuit, and now she's been awarded $2 million. Describe the case, describe what happened to this girl, and tell us about your reporting. Ben Ryan.
Okay. So it was a 3-week trial in White Plains, New York. That's in Westchester County, just about 45-minute drive or train ride up from New York City. And it concerned Fox Varian. She's a 22-year-old, and as a young girl growing up, she had a really difficult time, a lot of mental health struggles, a really difficult separation. Her parents, 3-year custody battle. She became estranged from her father. And then she started seeing a psychologist named Kenneth Einhorn when she was about 14. And when she was about 15 and a half, she started questioning her gender, as happens with a lot of girls these days. They have a lot of mental health problems. They're diagnosed with autism. We've seen this as a pretty big phenomenon that's been happening over the last decade. And it happened to this girl. She started cutting her hair. She cut her hair. She changed her name a couple of times. She started presenting as male in school. She really officially socially transitioned, as it's called, in the beginning of 2019 when she was 15. And she had her breast removed 11 months later by a plastic surgeon named Dr. Simon Chin, who was also a defendant. And so the trial really considered that period of time and what went wrong, essentially, that led to this psychologist to recommend ultimately that she see the surgeon and have the surgery and the surgeon to carry it out.
So in this case, if I may go through the facts just so I understand, a teenage girl was having some troubles in her life. She winds up seeing a psychologist. She is going through a social gender transition. The psychologist sends her over to a plastic surgeon, and together, I guess they work together, these adults work together to convince her to have her breasts removed. Is that how it happened?
I wouldn't put it that way at all. In fact, part of the problem and one of the things that they were really criticized for during the trial was not working together. They did not communicate effectively or at all, really. So the psychologist wrote a referral letter that October of 2019. It was pretty simple. There were errors in it. It was missing certain factors. But the doctor, this plastic surgeon, never called him to actually check up, to try to ask follow-up questions, that sort of thing. So, and it wasn't so much that he convinced her. The point of the trial was that it was her idea, but that he ultimately gave her tacit approval or even enabled her in this process. And you hear this a lot of this idea of the gender affirmation principle. That's something that really overtook the care field during the 2010s. And in 2018, the American Academy of Pediatrics put out a foundational policy document that ultimately established this type of treatment, this care, gender affirming care, as what the AAP endorsed. And it essentially says that young children, even very young children, know their gender and should be trusted to lead the way, essentially, ultimately in their own care. And that's essentially what happened here. Is just an independent practitioner, psychologist, absorbed these ideas. He was no specialist in this, and that was what he was really criticized for, was not questioning, why do you want to do this? Let's stop and think about this. Let's slow down. What's the rush? And the mother in the case, who ultimately had to give consent for the surgery, she says that she was browbeaten by the psychologist. She said she was opposed to it from the start, but he threatened her over and over that her daughter would very likely kill herself absent the surgery. But then crucially, Dr. Lauren Schechter, who's the head of the gender affirming surgery program at Rush University in Chicago, and he's also the president-elect of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, a very influential group. He testified that these surgeries are not suicide prevention. And that was very damning, ultimately, to the defense for Dr. Einhorn.
So you say the mother testified that she opposed this, but the psychologist really browbeat her into this. So at any time, at any time, did the patient, the teenage girl, ever encounter an adult who wasn't her mother, who said to her, "Hey, you need to reconsider this. Hey, this is life-altering. This is permanent. Hey, this may not be the right thing for you"? Did she ever talk to any adult other than her mother who gave her contrary advice to the direction she was heading?
Well, that's a very good question. We don't know exactly what these people said, but we do have their case notes. During the middle of that year, in July of 2019, Dr. Einhorn said, I'm not an expert in trans care, so I think that you should seek out some other people who might have that kind of expertise. So they went to what's called the Pride Center in Albany. It was a long drive. They only went there twice. But for whatever reason, we know from the case notes from those 2 sessions that Fox Varian, the plaintiff, apparently felt more comfortable to express her ambivalence on what she was really feeling. She said she felt pressure to decide upon her gender identity, that she wasn't sure, and that she was embarrassed to admit this to her mother. We don't know exactly what she told Dr. Einhorn about that session. He said they did talk about it, but it was very evident that Dr. Einhorn at least wasn't aware or didn't take seriously, perhaps, her ambivalence. And Dr. Chin said, had he ever seen the notes from that session? And crucially, Dr. Einhorn never asked for the notes, so Dr. Chin never saw them. And Dr. Chin said because she was ambivalent about her gender identity only 4.5 months before the surgery, he said that was too soon. She should have a stable identity for 6 months. She didn't even meet that. And he said had he known, he would not have done the surgery.
So in this case, it goes to trial. The girl ultimately is awarded $2 million. And it says here that there are over 20 similar lawsuits pending across the country on this issue. Are you anticipating more lawsuits? Are we going to see a massive number of these things hitting courtrooms in states across the nation?
It's hard to say. Nobody knows exactly how many people detransition, as it's called, and then regret it and then want to sue. So those numbers are very vague. It could be 5 to 10%, but especially with young people, who knows? Because this phenomenon, especially among teenagers, is relatively recent. So a certain amount of time has to pass before they detransition, and then you run up in statutes of limitations. So those can be very forbidding to cross. We've seen that a lot of the cases that have been filed have been running into that. So it's really hard to know what's going to happen, but I certainly have talked to litigators who think that this will encourage other lawsuits, because other attorneys might have been waiting for, the first ones to test the waters before they decided whether it's worth taking the risk.
Ben, this week we saw statements from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons and the American Medical Association now recommending against these kinds of surgeries for minors. Do you think that this outcome in this lawsuit that you have covered influenced those organizations to change their stance on this?
It's really hard to say, because we know that the ASPS had been working on that document for a long time. They came out and they were the only major medical organization ever to say so at the time in August of 2024 that they did not endorse gender transition treatments and surgeries for minors. They didn't take a position, but they just said they didn't endorse it. And now they've come out and said, in fact, we think that it's not a good idea because of the weak evidence base and all the risks and harms, and both known and unknown, that you should defer, they said, until age 19. And then the AMA, when it was another news outlet, asked the AMA, what do you think of this? And they said, we're going to go along with that as well about the surgeries. So it's really hard to say. I think that the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics in particular, has really painted themselves into a corner on this. And when they put out their 2018 document supporting the gender-affirming care method, which isn't a treatment guideline, but more of a philosophical guideline in terms of how you should approach treating these kids, which is what I think Einhorn absorbed ultimately, that was subject to a really brutal fact check a year later by Dr. James Cantor, a Canadian sex researcher. He pointed out all these errors and how some of the citations contradicted their points. They never responded to it. And then 5 years later, in 2023, they only reaffirmed that document with no changes. And they said they were going to conduct a systematic literature review, which is the gold standard of scientific evidence. But the AAP, there's no sign that they've actually started doing so since then, because if they actually did one, it would only say what all the other similar systematic reviews have said to this date, which is the evidence is weak and uncertain in this field.
Ben, we've got about a minute to go. The young lady in the case who was just awarded the $2 million, how is she doing today? You described a troubled life, and obviously she's been through a lot. How is she doing today outside of the outcome of the case?
It's hard to say, since the case was largely focused on her life during her teenage years. She's 22 now. But, it seems like she's had a really tough time, and she's lost her breast. She has huge scars, and she deals with numbness. She lost sensation. And also she said she has chronic nerve pain. And there was a really key point in the closing summation by the defense in which they criticized the plaintiff attorney for saying, never bringing in an expert to weigh in about what it really means to lose your breasts. And Adam Deutsch, the plaintiff's attorney, said, that is offensive. Like, no one needs to be told what it means to lose your breasts. How would you like if someone took off your penis, he said. And that was a very powerful moment where it really speaks to, what does it say when we have to stop and even ask someone, like, well, what's the big deal that you lost your breasts?
Ben Ryan is the reporter. His article is in the Free Press. It's called A Legal First That Could Change Gender Medicine, and you should subscribe to benryan.substack.com for more of this kind of reporting. Ben, thank you for joining us on the Scott Jennings Show. We take a break, and when we come back, I think Caroline Leavitt's been at the podium. We'll check in on her after this.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
It's Thursday, February 5th. Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings. We've been talking a little bit today about this tragic story out of Indiana. 4 people are dead. A semi-tractor trailer hit a van head on, and there's information now that the driver of the tractor trailer was not an American. In fact, he was in the country because Joe Biden let him in from Kyrgyzstan. I don't know if I have the pronunciation of that right. Kyrgyzstan. Anyway, this just came up in the White House press briefing with Caroline Leavitt. Let's listen in here.
Here are just a few recent examples.
No, that's
Number
not it.
one.
Let's play the other one. Cut 14, please. We don't have cut 14 yet. Okay, so Caroline Leavitt is at the podium today. She was asked about the case in Indiana where the semi-tractor trailer hit the van head on and 4 people died. The person is in the country because of the CBP One app. You may remember this from the Biden years. This was the app that allowed people to effectively get an app that otherwise they would have been inadmissible as illegal aliens. And yet, having this app allowed you to come into the country. They were letting 50, 60,000 people a month into the country on this app. This guy comes into the country and then is paroled into the country and gets a CDL from the state of Pennsylvania and then winds up in Indiana killing 4 people. Let's listen to it now, cut 14.
Caroline, the Department of Homeland Security put out a tweet a better part of an hour ago alleging that an illegal alien was involved in a major car wreck in Indiana, killing 4 people, and they allege that the suspect in question came in under the CBP One app under the Biden administration and received a commercial driver's license from the state of Pennsylvania. What is the White House's reaction to a situation like this? And what is the White House doing to crack down on cases like this where illegal aliens are obtaining commercial driver's licenses?
Yes, this is another abhorrent example of the border crisis over the past 4 years, and it again exemplifies why the administration must continue and will always continue to fully back and support ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement in their removal of illegal alien criminals from our country. For those who don't know, and all of you should report on it, 4 Americans were tragically killed and lost their lives this week yet again from an illegal alien, an individual who was paroled into the country by the Biden administration using the CBP One app, which they created like it was a magic pass for Disneyland. That's not how immigration in this country should work. And this illegal alien from Kyrgyzstan was traveling on an Indiana highway, and he failed to brake for a slowed semi-truck in front of him. He swerved into the lane and he crashed into a van carrying 15 passengers, and 4 people were killed in that crash. This is another tragedy that could have been prevented if not for the wide open borders from the previous administration. That's why we now have a secure border. That's why this administration will continue to deport illegal aliens from our country.
What's clear here in this case in Indiana is that Joe Biden's immigration policies directly led to the death of 4 people in Indiana. It is absolutely tragic. Of course, Joe Biden's immigration policies have led to many deaths in this country, people who came into this country and committed violent acts, murder, and other heinous acts against American citizens. There have been many cases of that. We seem to have cases of people who've come into the country and found themselves behind the wheel of these semi-tractor trailers over and over again and causing massive collisions, people who can't speak English, people who don't have a real immigration status here. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. The story today is 4 people dead in rural Indiana because someone that Joe Biden let into the country got behind the wheel of a semi. These things going down the highway at high speeds, as Tricia Mclaughlin told us earlier from the Department of Homeland Security, it's like they're missiles. And these things running into a van or a car or any other regular-sized vehicle, it's absolute carnage, and it needs to stop. We're closing out this hour here on the Scott Jennings Show. Before we do, I want to personally invite you to a cruise later this year. Mike Gallagher here of Salem and I are going on the Gulf of America cruise, November 14th through the 21st. You need to reserve your cabin today if you want to go on a cruise, if you want to go to cool places, if you want to have great conversations, if you want to eat great food, if you want to cruise around on a luxury ship. These all sound great to me, by the way. I'm excited about this, and I want you to be there. You need to reserve your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878. That's cruise to 94878. Or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. You don't want to miss it. Gallagher and Jennings on the high seas with all of you, our loyal listeners. More tomorrow from Kentucky. Signing off today, it's Salem. I'm Scott. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.